There is a frame in the footage that repeats 16,500 times. For 11 minutes, the exact same image. Then it gives me one different frame. That one frame is the reason I haven't slept in my own bedroom since April. This is the story of what I found in that house, and by the end of it you'll understand what I mean when I say it didn't make a mistake. It gave me that frame on purpose. There's one detail in the footage I still cannot explain away. I'll get to it. I'd been in the house 4 months when the nightmares started. Not a remarkable 4 months. I work in IT, remote, and I move around a fair amount. Not because I have to, but because I haven't had a particular reason to stay anywhere since my late 20s. The house was a rental in a mid-sized city I'd landed in after a contract renewal. 3 bedrooms, old hardwood floors that made different sounds depending on where you stepped, a kitchen that still smelled faintly like whoever had lived there before. Fine. Ordinary. Nothing that would make you look twice. The nightmares started in the second week of April. The first one was unusual in a way I found hard to name. Not unusual in the obvious way of nightmares. No melting walls, no monsters, nothing that announces itself as wrong. I was in my house. I recognized it. But the hallway was 3 feet longer than it should have been, and the light switches were on the wrong side of every door, off by just enough to notice. Slightly wrong, in the way that is more disturbing than obvious distortion, because it means your brain is tracking the measurements precisely enough to know something is 2 inches out of alignment. I was following something through the house. I could tell by the damage. Handprints on the wall at ceiling height, pressing in deep enough to crack the plaster in thin branching lines. Gouge marks in the floorboards, long parallel cuts, the kind you'd make if you were dragging something heavy behind you. The refrigerator in the kitchen was open. Something had been taken from the middle shelf. I could see the gap where it had been, the faint condensation ring on the shelf where it had sat. I followed the damage, down the wrong-length hallway, through the wrong-sided door, to the base of the stairs. I looked up into the dark at the top. The house was fine in the morning. Nothing wrong with the hallway, nothing wrong with the walls, the refrigerator closed and full. I put the dream down to the new place and the bad sleep patterns I'd developed, and the fact that I still hadn't finished unpacking and was living slightly off balance in the way of people who haven't committed to being somewhere yet. I made coffee and opened my laptop, and I didn't think about it again. The second night, same dream, same hallway, same damage. This time I reached the base of the stairs and climbed them. The third night, the same. I reached the landing. The fourth night, I got to the second hallway. It was shorter than the real one, much shorter, and narrower. 4 doors along it, all closed. The damage had made it this far, and ended at the last door, the door at the end. Whatever had dragged itself through this house had gone in there and stayed. Night after night, same routine. Wake up, house is fine, work, go to bed, return to exactly where I'd been, advance slightly, wake up. I started to dread sleep in a way I hadn't since I was a child, not because anything in the dream hurt me or threatened me directly, but because of the quality of concentration it imposed, the absolute wrongness of the geometry, the careful deliberateness of the damage. Whatever had moved through that house had done so with purpose, had done so many times before I arrived. The route was worn in. The 6th night I woke to the refrigerator open in the real kitchen, door hanging wide, cold air spreading across the floor. The takeout container from the middle shelf, Tuesday's leftovers, was gone. I checked the trash, I checked the counters, I checked the living room. It wasn't anywhere in the house. I told myself I'd eaten it while sleepwalking. I'd read about Stranger Things. I needed the available rational explanation, and that was it, and I took it. The 9th night, the refrigerator again. This time the whole middle shelf was cleared. Eggs, a half block of cheese, a bottle of salad dressing, gone. I found the egg carton in the hallway, empty, like someone had set it down after using it. The cheese and the dressing I never found. That was the night I stopped telling myself it was sleepwalking. The 11th night in the dream, I reached the door at the end of the second hallway. I put my hand on the knob. I turned it. I woke up. On the floor next to my bed, plaster dust. White, very fine, in a small oval depression. About the size and shape of the ball of a foot. Not a boot print, nothing wet. Just the impression of a foot that had stood there and then lifted away. The dust was the kind that falls from walls when something presses against them hard enough, or from ceilings when something presses against them from below. I stood in my bedroom at 6 a.m. and looked at that oval and understood it was not from me. I cleaned it up. I spent 2 hours online with my coffee, researching parasomnia in adults, stress-induced somatic experiences, sleep architecture disruption in people who move frequently. I found enough to lean on. I needed something to lean on. The 14th night, I found gouges in the floorboards of my real hallway. Fresh cuts in the wood. I'd mopped those floors 2 days prior, and they hadn't been there. They started at the base of the stairs and ended at the kitchen, matching the dream route exactly. I stood in the hallway at 6:45 in the morning, looking at those marks. I understood in the way you understand things in that house that you're not supposed to understand yet, that the nightmares weren't mine, that I was dreaming something else's nightly circuit through my house, that whatever I was following in the dream, tracking by its damage, night by night, was the same thing making the real marks in my real floors, and I was dreaming it because some part of me was registering its presence, the way a sleeping body registers the sound of a door opening. Not consciously, but completely. I started keeping notes, time I went to sleep, what I dreamed, what I found in the morning. The evidence column was getting long. The explanation column had stayed empty since the 9th night. I started sleeping with the lights on. It didn't change the nightmares. The 16th night, I got the door open. What was beyond it was a room. My bedroom. The real one. Every detail right. The lamp on the nightstand, the clothes draped on the chair by the window, the stack of manuals I'd been meaning to shelve since I moved in, the mirror above the dresser, the window showing the right street, and in the bed, me. I was asleep, lying on my back, right arm across my chest, face turned slightly left. I recognized my own posture the way you recognize a reflection you weren't expecting. It was correct in every detail. The sleeping version wasn't slightly wrong, wasn't a dream version of me with the face slightly off. It was me, breathing slowly, completely still. I stood in the doorway and looked at myself sleeping. And then I saw the north corner. The north corner of my room is where the ceiling meets the two walls, diagonally across from the door. Nothing is there in the real room. No furniture, no reason to look at it. In the dream, something occupied it. Not crouching, not standing, occupying it in a way that didn't obey the dimensions. It was large. I understood it was large, even though I couldn't see all of it. And it was arranged in a way that meant the corner holding it wasn't the same corner that was there. The geometry had changed to fit it. It didn't look like a person. It didn't look like anything I have a word for. But I understood it was looking at the sleeping version of me with the same focused quality a person has when they lean in very close to examine something small. I couldn't see a face. I couldn't see eyes. But I knew where the attention was directed. And I knew it was not directed at me. And then it turned. Whatever constituted its attention shifted from the bed to the doorway. To me. And what I noticed about that shift, the thing I have never been able to set down, was the quality of it. It wasn't startled. It wasn't caught. It turned with the unhurried calibration of something that has known I was standing in that doorway for longer than I have known I was standing there. It had already accounted for me. I was already part of the calculation. It looked at me with recognition. I woke at 3:18 in the morning. I turned on every light in the house and sat in the kitchen until the sky got light. If this one's getting under your skin, there's a new story here every night. Subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with another one. I bought a camera the next morning. Nothing complicated. A basic wide-angle security cam, $60, monitoring app on my phone. I mounted it on a dresser aimed at the room. The field of view covered the bed, the door, and the north corner. All three. The first 3 nights of footage, nothing. Me asleep, undisturbed. No movement in the doorway, no movement in the corner. The camera blinking its small red light in the dark, registering nothing. I started to believe that the act of being watched, of introducing a witness into the room, had changed something. That whatever had been making its circuit through the house each night had seen the camera and stopped. I've thought about that belief since. The exact shape of it. What I told myself, the camera was a deterrent. What I didn't let myself think, it had seen the camera, and it was patient, and it was assessing. 11 nights of nothing, the nightmares lightened. Less vivid, less purposeful, the kind you don't remember by the time you've made coffee. I stopped writing in a notebook. I started to let myself use the word coincidence. The way you take a painkiller for something that should be seen by a doctor. It gets you through the day. Night 13, I pulled up the footage at 7 a.m. and scrubbed through it. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I reached 2:47 a.m. I thought the file had corrupted. I scrubbed forward, the same frame. Scrubbed again, same frame. I moved the playhead to 3 a.m., Still 2:47:22. Moved to 3:30 to 4 o'clock. The timestamp stayed fixed. The image didn't change. At 4:47 a.m., it jumped to 4:47:01. 11 minutes of footage, gone. Or so I thought. I sent the file to a friend who works in video post-production. Didn't explain what I was looking for. Just asked him if he could look at a gap in a recording. He called me back 45 minutes later. "The file isn't corrupted," he said. "What do you mean?" I said. "All the frames are there. From 2:47:22 to 4:47:0, every frame is intact. But they're all identical, pixel for pixel, one image repeated." I asked him how many frames. At 25 frames per second, he said. 11 minutes, about 16,500. I thanked him and hung up. 16,500 frames of perfect stillness. Whatever had stood in front of that camera had not moved, not shifted its weight, not blinked. For 11 minutes it had held perfectly still in front of the lens, long enough that the camera would continue recording, that no motion event would trigger, that the footage would look uninterrupted, long enough that I would watch it in the morning, see nothing, and keep the camera. Then at 4:47 a.m. it had stepped back. The timestamp had returned to real time, patient, deliberate, mapping the system before deciding what to give me. I sat with the single frame for a long time before I looked at it closely. I understood that looking closely was a one-way door. Whatever was in that frame had chosen to be there. The 11 minutes of stillness had not been an accident. The one different frame at the end had not been a slip. The frame looks normal. The bed, the dresser, the lamp off, the door closed, the window in shadow. My shape under the covers, on my back, everything exactly where it should be. I looked at the north corner, at the ceiling, at the junction of the two walls in the north corner. There are two shapes, small, white, oval, pressed together close near the joint where the ceiling meets the north wall. Very high, 6 feet above the mattress at minimum. Slightly elongated in the way of something that has been looking in one direction for a long time. Open eyes. Looking at something. And what they're looking at, I've zoomed the frame as far as the resolution permits. I've sharpened it. I've adjusted the exposure. What they're looking at is not the bed. Not me, asleep in the bed. They are looking at the camera. Directly at the camera. At the small red indicator light that I had not thought to cover. That had been blinking in the dark, visible from anywhere in the room, since the first night I mounted it. It had known the camera was there, and for 11 nights it had held out a frame, letting me watch footage of an empty room, letting me come to the word coincidence, letting me stop writing in the notebook and sleep better and start to believe the problem had resolved. 11 nights of waiting, of staying out of the camera's field while it, decided, prepared, counted how many mornings I reviewed the footage and how long I spent on it. And then on night 13 it had stepped in front of the camera and stood there for 11 minutes to ensure the recording would continue, to ensure I wouldn't pull the camera down, to establish that the camera was stable, that I was watching it every morning, that the footage was reaching me. And then it had given me one different frame, one frame out of 16,500. I've looked at that frame every day for nearly 3 months. I've sent it to 2 other people, an old colleague, a professional photographer who does a lot of forensic analysis work. Both of them called me back within an hour. Neither of them said artifact. Neither of them said compression error. The photographer said, whatever that is, it's positioned relative to the camera, not to the room. It's not looking at the person in the bed. That's what I can't put down. Not the shape of it, not the height of it, above the bed, the direction of it, the choice. 16,500 frames of nothing, and then one frame of something. One frame where those eyes are visible and aimed at the camera. It had 11 minutes of perfect concealment, and it chose to end on that. It wanted me to know it was there. It wanted me to know that it knew about the camera. Those are not the same thing. Both matter, and it knew both mattered. Something is in that house. Has been in that house. Probably for longer than I was a tenant there. Probably for longer than I'd like to think about. It has a nightly route. It moves things. It stands in the north corner of the bedroom and looks at whoever is sleeping in the bed. And when a camera appeared, it didn't leave. I don't know what it wants. I don't know if that's even the right word for the process running behind those eyes. I don't know if it wanted me specifically, or if I was simply the current occupant. I don't know if what it gave me, that single different frame, was a warning or an introduction, or something else entirely, something without a name in the vocabulary I have. What I know is this: It is patient enough to wait 11 nights. It is aware enough to know where the camera is and what its field of view covers. It is deliberate enough to choose when and what to show me, and whatever it is doing in that house, whatever circuit it runs each night, whatever it takes from the refrigerator, whatever it presses against the walls hard enough to crack the plaster, it has been doing it long before I arrived, long before there was a camera to know about. I am still paying rent. I don't know why I'm still paying rent. The hotel is more expensive. The staff knows my name. They've stopped asking how long I'm staying, but I haven't given the house back, and I haven't taken the camera down. Maybe I'm waiting to see what it does next. Maybe it's the same thing from my side as it is from its side. A camera on, a room watched, one person learning the habits of another. I don't sleep in that room anymore, but I check the footage every morning. At 7 a.m., same as always. So far, 16,500 frames of nothing, and then one of something. If this one's gonna keep you up tonight, subscribe. I post a new story here every night.